So, hello everyone. This talk is originally for 30 minutes, so I'm going to try to fit it in 15. It's more about this mad scientist shit that I really like. Just a bit about myself. I'm a security researcher, I'm a hacker, human-centered technologist. I did my PhD on blockchain's unforeseen consequences, everything about front-running, Oracle failure, the dark side of permissionless. I did some security work on smart contracts, some infrastructure for staking. But what matters here is I've been teaching Farsi speakers crypto tech and like cryptography since 2015 through Coin Iran Academy and Shir Yakhat podcast, and also co-founded Iran on Chain a few years ago that we try to use crypto to basically pass the geopolitical exclusion. And my current obsession is just internet freedom and Moaf. So I just want to say, like, the internet blackout is not a one-time thing. So Iran has been going through the dark internet moments for like over 2 decades. Every time it gets longer, it gets harder. There are more people getting arrested and killed. And this is just a sample of like the big events that happened in the last 2 decades. And every time the governments learn how to do this better. This year, it's weird to say that Iran has been mostly offline in 2026. And it started with some street protests around January 8th and 9th that it was weird because this time everything was killed, like even SMS, phones, like even the intranet that the government used, it was like all down. And the numbers are weird, around 30 to 70,000 people were killed in the street. And there was an internet, came back a bit, but then 88 days of just internet went dark. And it came back 2 weeks ago, and interestingly, it's routing through Azerbaijan, which we're still figuring out how and why. But getting to the point is, so before you say this is like Iran's problem, no, it's not. It's becoming a global trend. And now you see in Nepal, this is like a VPN demand on specific events. Nepal, Uganda, United Kingdom, in Russia, they're not even banning VPNs. They're starting to like DDoSing VPN infrastructure. And basically, if you look back, every one of these spikes is a population trying to flee to a free internet. It's almost like immigration in some sense. And it's just different flags, different countries, but same playbook. They just want to control the network, to control the people and see what they know and what they can talk about online. I have this part of the talk that talks about why internet infrastructure and Web3 is enchantifying. But I feel like this crowd already knows about that, so I'm not going to spend that much time on this. But just to say that with Web3, a lot of these started with cypherpunks saying that we are defending our privacy with cryptography. They wanted to be able to have secure communications through borders without anyone knowing what they're talking about through remailers, signatures, and other things. And they were talking about privacy, communication privacy. And what we have right now, and we talk about now, maybe is more about financial privacy in Web3 world. And one of the issues is basically the gist of this slide is financial privacy has a business model. People can have tokens and make money out of it, but communication privacy for, let's say, someone in Tehran doesn't have a business model. And that's one of the issues that we're seeing in the Web3 space and around that. And the part that I actually changed the title of this talk, and I like the previous one more. But now this is a topic that in Web3 world, or in a lot of other spaces, we started focusing on the app layer, the protocol layer, and also the transport like ENS and others. But we kind of forgot about the ISPs, the physical layer, the fiber. It's not necessarily a technical problem, a technical failure. It's more a failure of imagination of who the adversary could be and what they're capable of. And we're seeing here that if access or physical access is cut, then the whole thing is irrelevant. And this is more about this personal story that I went through building Moab. And I want to tell you like why I built this. So I'm Iranian diaspora. I've been teaching Web3 tech stack for over a decade. And when the blackout came, it just was all worthless. Like I couldn't even message my family. Like it wasn't not even blocked. It was not even delivered. And it took me a week to be able to like get back to myself And instead of like sitting in a corner and crying, I was like, I need to do something. So I started rage coding. And it was not necessarily something I had hopes for. I was just for my own sanity. I was like, I need to do something. And I started rage coding this, and I had almost no hope that it would work. I was like, there's this Chinese proxy that might work. There's this other Russian VPN that might work. So let's just put them all together and see how that works. So in January and February, basically shipped Moab, and people started using it and get through it, and it was working, and I was so happy. And then around late February, there was a full internet shutdown, so nothing got through anymore. There was silence in all the charts. And I broke. I was like, I failed again. And I went for a walk for a few days. And I came back and I looked at the charts, and I realized people from Myanmar, Russia, China, a lot of other people are, even UK, still using these servers. So I started like fixing bugs, adding protocols. And then later in May, when internet in Iran started coming back, I saw Iran's coming back to the charts, and I was like, those were the power users I was building this for. So it made me a bit motivated again. And just before I say like what this does and how this works, so I wanted to basically turn anyone into an arsenal of VPN protocols. And it wasn't necessarily an elegant solution. I just wanted the most redundant solution. And it wasn't necessarily about picking up the best protocol. I picked up all protocols, everything that is out there. Sorry. And basically the idea is more security the other way around, in the sense that like the sensor has to block all of them, but we just need one to get through. And basically using like one command, you can run all possible protocols that I know of. There are some on GitHub that I'm like integrating more. About 16 protocols are getting there. And initially as a joke, I named it Mother of All VPNs, but it became the thesis of it. And basically, anyone, any stranger with a spare VPS can become the infrastructure. And one of the issues that I had a hard time explaining to people outside Iran was, so when internet shutdown happened, it's not like it's actually physically unplugged. There are people inside Iran started scanning internet. It's similar to like you scan the universe for life. People started scanning internet for getting some pings. And sometimes there were like some regions for some reason, either mistake or infrastructure for the government, like Azure North Africa was open. So we had two problems. One, how can we as outsiders get an IP address in that range, which is a technical problem and is solvable. But then you need to set up as many VPNs as you can and give people access. So I wanted to spend no time setting up the VPN. There's one command, runs everything, even starts donating bandwidth to Tor, to Siphon, and I want to configs to be handy and be able to like pass it to people. So you had only a few days for that server and IP addresses to work, so you just didn't want to waste any time. So this is one of the problems I built Moa for, and you have to be ready for that. And just to say, this is not really like slideware. So basically, this blue box is Moab, like all those protocols there. And the way it works is almost any VPN protocol, any VPN apps that are out there, Moab has some configuration for them. So there are some apps I wrote as a sample, also Siphon users and Tor through Snowflake. They all can route through Moab. So Moab, when you run the server, you become part of the infrastructure for all these anti-censorship protocols. And also, it gives you this config file that is so easy to use. And by that, what I mean is, so that one command runs this. You have a TUI, which enables you to do anything on the server. You get like an admin dashboard. You can add users, remove users, and donate configs. And also a graphonometric to see who's using your server, if it's working or not. And thanks to AI coding, my goal was to make it best UX ever, user experience ever for the operator and also user. So my goal was like, you don't need to be technical to become this VPN provider. And with one command, it just runs. And it gives you this, for users, gives you this HTML file right now in Farsi and English that explains every step. And it's so easy to use that I hope even your grandma can use on her phone to get online when she goes to Iran or Russia or some other places. And something I want to talk about the frontier and like the arms race that Iran's and a lot of other countries are starting to block like obvious VPN traffic, like OpenVPN, WireGuard. And then they learn and they block other proxies that look like proxies. So it's an arm race, and it's interesting. They get really creative people there. Is that so when they start like blocking servers, they didn't want smart TVs to be outdated because they got hacked before to a smart TV. So they enabled update.samsung.com to be able to like pass through. So you could fake your traffic that is going through there, but goes through Moab and goes through the actual internet. There was some of the Google infrastructure was open for a while, and people started using the script that Google to like run Apple script to be used as an exit. One of my super favorite ones is Ballet is one of the Iran's approved messaging app that's full of backdoors. But people started using it as using the WebRTC video calls to route traffic. And later on, I found there is like a protozoa, which is an academic paper that Russia and China also used this a few years ago. And of course, DNS tunnels. We saw in Iranian developers that there's like a massive amount of new DNS tunnels out there. And I was able to include 4 big ones, like DNSTT, a Slipstream, famous ones, and also some new exotic ones, all through Moab. So basically, one of the goals, like governments still need some infrastructure to run, and we can hide our traffic there. So they build the pipelines, and we just use that. So from here is the more what the state of everything, the frontier, and also what we can do. I really want to be honest here, because if you oversell any of these tech, people actually get hurt inside these blackouts. There are a few really exotic approaches. People start using like GitHub continuous integration to like commit, like do a git commit with the URL in the message, and then the CI would download that file and serve it in that Git repo. TCP or WhatsApp, it wasn't that useful in Iran because WhatsApp was also filtered. The feed, I want to shout out to them because there was Telegram over DNS. It's really slow, but it worked. Netagram is something I'm going to talk about next slide. So these are also something that was built by the people inside the blackouts. And that's what researchers also call grassroots infrastructuring or survival work. We saw a lot of applications that people start sharing sharing Starlink through their neighborhood of people that they really needed internet. But it got really risky because you were using still the government infrastructure to share that traffic, and a lot of people got arrested because of doing that. I've seen some people trying to do using power lines to do networking inside the building. I know it's not possible to go pass through transformers, but can we try? And yeah, so I'm gonna like get to the next one is more. So this is another one. So that period of dark internet, there was the only way for people to communicate was to call from landline from inside Iran to a number outside. And I was still building Moab, and I wanted like them to try some of these VPNs, but I couldn't really read a JSON file over the phone to my like wife's parents. So I rage coded another software. It's basically uses the voice to send data. It should be possible. It's really slow. It's around 20 bits per second, bits per second on a noisy phone call, but it still gets through. It's using the same tech that NASA uses at Voyager from Interstellar to communicate. So it's the same tech, and it works. The only problem is like the cold start, how to get that app inside Iran. But if they are able to do it even through NPM, it just works fully offline. And I would love to hear anyone using it and see how that works. But it works. It's really slow. It works. And it also creates this weird noise. So this is kind of the state for the Web3. I want to take a stab at the Web3 and saying that, like, well, we still need crypto inside, like, especially that's really more useful inside Iran because they need to, like, in the blackouts to be able to buy things. And it's really embarrassing right now that we don't really have a way to do offline transactions in most of the blockchains. Like Bitcoin has something partially signed Bitcoin transaction, but let's say for EVM wallets, Ethereum wallets, you can't even build an offline transaction because you need the gas, you need the nonce. And let's say even you get through that, you can't even export the signed transaction out to be able to like pass it through Carrier Pigeon or Netagram to broadcast it. One of my asks is basically can we use any escrow or any way to do low value offline transactions? They're low risk and they save people today. I don't have that much time, but like we have like pop-up cities. Why don't we do pop-up mesh? Like we have pop-up cities. Or this conference, we should be able to run our own mesh, do our own traffic and communication here. And then after this conference, they're all gone. Like we don't need to keep those information. Why don't we do this? Like we should. And it enables people to like make this technology better, get more familiar with it, and be ready for something that happens to them, if something happens to them. And we don't have to like win. We just have to make it more expensive for the governments to censor. Like at first they censored through DNS. We created DNS tunnels and DNS over HTTP. They created they blocked IPs. We route through that through proxies. I want to get through this ask because this is like really important for me. So this one, basically, you need to build, first of all, if you build a software that breaks in the crisis it was built for, it's worse than no tool because people trusted it and we wanted to use it. So build for the people who gets cut off. Like first of all, deploy Moaf tonight. If you have a Raspberry Pi or a VPS, deploy it. By default, it starts conduit Snowflake. So before you sleep, someone behind this wall is going to breathe through your bandwidth. Build for the hard problems, not just a DeFi thing. Offline payments, mesh, exotic routing. Like we need more of these, and I'm glad that this crowd is like really doing that. And fund the gap also. Like there are so many projects that can use these funding. Also for the next hackathon, put a prize up for something really crazy and a mesh, and see if people would build it, and they would. And yeah, so it's kind of like a rent that we're paying on the free internet we have. And I think I'm out of time, but like, yeah, become the infrastructure, run it, and be what you want to see in this internet, on this internet. And that's my website and Twitter. Please reach out. I would be happy to talk more about this. Yeah.